Hey everybody, my name is Deborah and I am here today to tell the story of my dad, passing away. Today marks the 3-year anniversary of him not being here with us. Before I start the story, I know it's a long catch, I know it's a long thing to think that the person who donated their heart to my dad would be watching, if that was your son or daughter. But if this video does find you and someone in your family lost their life on December 11th, 2015, and you donated their organs and you have not wanted to keep in contact with the families who received them, I know it's a long catch, but if you're watching this, I am totally over the moon thankful for you and this decision that you've made. And if it never sees you, well, I still feel the same. And if you are interested in being an organ donor, or someone in your family unfortunately passes away and you think they would be a good fit for an organ donor, I want to start out this video by saying our whole life has been changed by organ donation. My dad was receiving a heart transplant when he did not make it back, and that's fine. But as well as that, his older brother, my Uncle Mike, had severe diabetes since I think his 16th birthday he found out about it, and he has a full transplant or a main transplant or something. I think that's where you have 5 new organs or something like that. I'm not super sure. I'm not really close to my uncle, but I know he had a huge transplant thing where he got a ton of stuff, and now he's totally healthy and the best he's been in forever. So it really touches lives, and it really is a lifesaver. And even though my dad didn't make it, if you're already gonna pass away and you're not gonna need that anyway, it's the biggest, most selfless gift you can give somebody. So I am totally pro donor and donations, and I hate to think of the day that my kids might not, be around, but I will definitely, if there's a chance given, donate their organs, as well as I'm a donor, as well as my husband's a donor, all because of how much it's changed our lives. So now that that's over and out of the way, I would like to get in the story of my dad. My dad was born with a heart defect, and he was born in 1966. So the technology and stuff that they have now is a little bit better, but back in those days, they didn't have everything so grand. And they told my grandparents to not name him, to not have a bedroom ready, to not get your hopes up because he'll probably never live. And they didn't know if it was a boy or a girl back in those days. It was all just a big wild guess, but they knew that there was going to be a heart defect. And so my grandparents were very worried, and they prayed a lot, and they were very concerned that their kid was, maybe not going to survive. He survived. He passed away when he was 49 years old. So, he survived a lot longer than anyone was expecting. At the beginning of his life, there were no issues. There was nothing to show that he was not superly, perfectly healthy. He was a plasterer, plaster, however you want to call it. That was his career. That's what he had done his whole life. And he was very strong and very fast. He never did drugs except for chewing tobacco and dip or whatever. But everyone, even at his funeral and when we talk about him now, there was he worked like a tweaker. He was so strong and he was so fast, you would have thought he was on one. But he would never, did drugs, and that was since he was 11 working, so he was way too young to, start anything or anything like that. So yeah, they just said the whole time that he felt good. He was super strong, a super good worker, fast, incredible. And if you are familiar with plaster or stucco, anything like that, you know that the bags of cement that they have, or sand, They hold them like this. Well, my dad used to hold them like this. They're either 50 pounds or 100 pounds each. And my dad would put like 3 on this side and 3 on this side and like load them up and like drop them into the truck. And like, he was stupid strong, you guys. Like, he was tall. I have his death certificate somewhere. I can find out exactly how tall he was, but I'm going to say he was 6'3". And when I was young, he was probably like 150, 180, but he was like buff, dude. He was like super lean and like hella muscular and always working and whatever. So there was no signs of him being unhealthy. There was no signs of him not making it or anything. My grandparents were thrilled. Um, the doctors did tell my grandparents, okay, he's a year old. He survived a lot longer than we were expecting. He might outlive you or you might outlive him. We don't know. Like, at this point, it's exact opposite of what we were thinking. We don't know what's going to happen in his future. And he was perfectly fine. There were no issues. When I was in 4th grade or 6th grade, there started being some health issues. And from that point on until the day he died, things started going very downhill, if you know what I mean. So he had a heart attack and he had to have a pacemaker put in before he was 30 years old. There was a hole in his heart. So I remember being at that hospital in Chico or Redding and them saying like, there's a hole in his heart. It's like a cloud and we have to cover it up with like another cloud-like thing. And I remember them getting a heart pillow and everyone signing it. And he has a few like that because he's had a few big surgeries. But I believe that was his first big main surgery. And at this time, my parents had already been divorced. So he was kind of doing it alone. And we would go and visit him and whatever with my grandparents. So, but yeah, after that moment, it kind of just really went downhill. He was never able to work again. He was on disability. Disability does not pay you very much. So it was like $1,400 a month or $1,200 a month or something. And that's not a lot to live off of, especially not here in California. Like it's nothing to live off of. So he was just kind of miserable, kind of bored. He had a lot of anger. And I feel like that's because a lot of his life and livelihood and everything he knew got taken away. Because he goes from working every day in the Bay Area, like being super busy. He goes from doing all those things to like being forced to sit down and do nothing. And he was always tired and he hated when it was hot. Like you would go in his bedroom, you would go in his house, you go anywhere and it was freezing cold. And so he started like losing a lot of money. He started losing his cars, started losing his house. And like life wasn't really the best after he got sick, So I feel like that's where his anger came from, is that he never expected to be in this bad off of a position or feel this bad. And, it kind of catches up with you. I think that's to be expected. So my sister was in the Army and her husband was in the Army. And she needed somebody to watch their newborn baby while she went back to work. And I think she was like, 6 weeks postpartum or something. And they were stationed at El Paso, Fort Bliss, I believe. So she asked my dad, like, do you want to come to Texas and move in with us? I know you're just renting a room in California, but like this way, you can be with us. You don't have to pay nothing. And it's Texas, like everything's cheaper, and you get out. And he's like, sure. And he never came back to California except to visit. But for the last like 7 years of his life or something like that, he was in Texas and he would just move around different parts of Texas. So he started in El Paso to watch my sister's son. And then my sister got stationed in Iraq. And so the baby went to my mom's. So he moved from that to Harker Heights. And after Harker Heights, he went to Three Rivers. And he just kind of like bounced around and, did whatever made him happy. He had a part-time job for a little bit, but he didn't feel very good. So he quit it and just did whatever. He went to live closer to some of his family that me and my sister really don't want to have anything to do with. They're not like the nicest people. They're not, I mean, even people that are related to them closely, like close cousins or whatever, don't want to have anything to do with them. It's not just me and my sister. Like, they're just horrible people. But that guy, that husband there, was going to offer him a job being like a plumber, which he had a little bit of experience in. So he wanted just to make some extra money and get out of the house and do something for himself. So he was doing that for side jobs. And that's where he was staying. And he started obviously not feeling good again because his health would always go back and forth. And every few years he was having like procedures done, getting a new pacemaker, getting a quadruple bypass, getting a triple bypass. Like, he's been through tons of operations. And honestly, I can't sit here and tell you why they have to do different operations or what's going on. But I'm just telling you, like, you know, the operations that he had. He could have explained it way more in detail than I could. So he basically gets put on the heart transplant list. And when he's put on this list, he calls me and like we're praying about it. And the first meeting he got put on. And they say, usually you don't get put on the first meeting. Usually you have to go and talk to them a few different times and you have to like beg to be put on the list. And with my dad, he went the very first time and got it. So we're like, awesome, you know, like keep us updated. And I was obviously living here in California. My son was like 3 months old. And on December 11th, I got a phone call. And it was my dad. And I just answered it like any other day, like whatever. And he was like, hey, I gotta go. But like really quick, I gotta let you know something. But I gotta go. I can't talk long. And I'm like, what? What's going on? And he's like, I got my heart. I got the heart. I got the phone call. I got the heart. I'm trying to get a hold of your sister, but she's not answering her phone. I love you. Tell your sister I love her. I got my heart. Can you believe I got my heart? And he's ecstatic. And I'm like, oh my God, you got your heart. Hang up the phone. Call everyone you know. Like, I love you. I'll talk to you in like 12 hours. Like, yes. And just hang up the phone. Like, he's super, super crazy excited. He's in the car. My grandma ended up being in Texas with him for a little bit over a year. She didn't quit her job, but she like took a break from her job to go over there and be with him and make sure he's okay, because you know his health was just kept declining. So you can hear her in the background, you can hear other people in the background. They're all like, we're on the way to the hospital. Like, everyone's probably on their phones going wild, I can imagine. And so I'm not even upset. Like, I want him to hang up the phone. I want him to talk to everyone. Like, I'm like, oh, heck yeah. Like, just let me know. I'll be praying for you. Like, no big deal. And so we hang up the phone. And we got text messages and phone calls from my grandma. And she's kind of explaining, like, they say it's a very long procedure. They're saying between 8 to 10 hours, if I can remember correctly. So we won't hear anything between then. My phone's being blown up and I'm just gonna like put my phone on silent or something so it doesn't waste battery. So when it's done, like we can all talk to each other and we can all like, you know, be okay. And so I'm like, yeah, like no big deal. Just call me. Like, I'll be up, like whatever. And a few hours later, maybe 2 or 3 hours after I got that phone call from my dad, I'm putting my baby, who's like 3 months, I'm giving him a bath, and I have like the worst feeling roll over me. Like, I've never felt something this bad. And it's just this feeling of like, it's not gonna be good. It's not gonna happen right. It's not gonna happen like you want. And I'm like, no, don't think like that. Like, you have to think positively. Like, do not be over here telling me that the surgery, like, we've been waiting for the surgery since I was in like 6th grade. Like, come on, you know, I was like 28, 29 years old. Like, come on, it's gonna work. And so I'm like not, you know, really letting it faze me. I did call my husband at his store and I was like, hey, you know, I got this really bad feeling, you know. And he's like, no, like, don't think that way. This was made for your dad. Like, your dad, it's going to happen right before the holidays. Your dad is going to be so excited to get out of the hospital, like, right before Christmas. Like, you don't understand. Like, this is the blessing that you've been praying for. Like, it'll be fine. And I'm like, yeah, you're probably right. Like, I'm probably just being negative. Like, you're right. So I just went on with my day, but like for some reason I couldn't shake it. I wouldn't talk about it again. I wouldn't like go post that negativity on anything, but like I kind of felt it. And a little bit before midnight my time, but he was in Texas, so it was after midnight over there, a little bit around that time. I got a phone call from my uncle, and it had been maybe like 9 hours into surgery or something. I don't know, it had been a while. And he says, "Are you at home?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "I'm on my way to see you." And I knew what that meant. Like, I know if you have something to tell me, but you don't want to tell me over the phone, I know what you're saying. And I got a text message from my cousin Courtney, who is not even related to my dad's side. She's my cousin from my mom's side. So it's like really weird that she would text me. She's like, "I'm sorry to hear about the news." And so I wrote her back and I'm like, "What news?" And she's like, "About your dad." And I'm like, "What news about my dad?" And she's like, "That he didn't make it through surgery." And then my uncle comes over a little while later and he's like, "I'm sorry your dad didn't make it through surgery. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." And I was like, "I know." And he's like, "What do you mean you know?" And I'm like, "Everyone already knows. Like, my mom's side of the family already knows. They already wrote me." And he's like, "Okay." And I'm like, "Okay." And like, I didn't know how to be. I didn't know how to feel. And I didn't know how to comprehend it. And all I could think about, like, my dad was so strong, you guys. And my dad went through like so many surgeries. And he always told me and my sister, like, nothing can take me down. Like, I have fought my whole life. Like, don't think that a little heart is going to get me. Like, you girls, I'm way stronger than this. Don't you think that this is going to be the end of me. And so, like, I was at peace with knowing that he was finally relaxed and rested and ready to go. And I wasn't even mad. Like, I wasn't. There's still a lot of hate and bitterness and everything between those people that were with him that would like only tell us lies about him in the hospital and say he was so bad and tell me at like 8 months pregnant if I need to find out about him that I can fly to Texas when my doctor put me on a no-fly thing. So there's a lot of hate there, and there's a lot of like stuff that I'll never do and I'll never have respect for and whatever. But like, they're the ones that are going to be living miserable lives because that's the kind of person that they are. That's not anything on me. But yeah, he didn't make it out, but he had more hope and more happiness from that phone call till he got into the San Antonio hospital to get the surgery done. I think it's like 2 hours away from Three Rivers, but there was more hope and happiness and joy that he had felt in those moments, the last moments of him living. And there's a picture of him being on the bed, being taken out to surgery, and he's waving and he's smiling and he looks so happy. And he had been so unhappy for such a long time. So I think for that alone is just worth it to me. So like I said at the beginning, if it happens to be you or you happen to know the person who, you know, passed away, or even if it wasn't the same person, but if you had someone pass away around that time and you donated, or if you've ever donated, like, even if that family didn't make it, they're so happy that they were given that chance, that they were given that opportunity, that they were given this huge blessing to change their life around and finally be the person that they could have always been. So he didn't make it, but he's in a better place. And I feel him so much closer than I have when he was alive. Because I said, like, he was in Texas for 7 years before he died. So now I feel him all the time. And I have so many clothes of his, and I have his truck. And it does make me feel bad, and it does make me feel sad, and it does make me feel like so angry that, you know, my son never got to meet him and my kids don't get to grow up with him. But I feel that he's around all the time. So that's the story of my dad and my dad's passing. If you are not yet a donor, please become one. You could definitely change a lot of lives. I love you guys, and I will talk to you guys next time. Bye.